Okay. There we go. All right. So, the slides here. Okay, so who am I? My name is Scott Danesi. I am a tinkerer or, normal person. I do a lot of technical stuff, and I play around a lot with things like engineering and cutting things on a CNC machine for fun, and doing music writing, and just a bunch of random things that for some reason, if you put them all together, it equals a pinball machine. I don't understand how that works yet, but I'll figure that out later. It's just I just happen to have is this thing playing by itself?
It used to be on autoplay.
Yeah, hold on a second.
It was a great show.
Yeah, did you guys enjoy that? That's funny. All right, let's try that again. Okay, cool.
Scott, can you use the mic or not?
Do you want me to use a mic?
They want you to. People want you to drop it when you go. So.
I can't do that. I could use a mic if you really want to.
Yeah,
it's really
people back there having a hard time.
All right.
Sorry, bud.
Oh, it's all good. The mic feels so formal to me. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, way more better.
That's echo. Can you hear that?
That's good. We like it.
That's awesome. Okay.
Nice back box.
Cool. Okay. Now, it looks like the slides are not advancing by
They are.
themselves, right?
We did it again.
You know what?
All
right, guys. This is awesome.
I'll forget what I saw.
Yeah, you know what? You should have too. All right.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Let me just figure this out.
It's my fault, probably.
That's okay. It's not Rudy's fault.
It's totally
Everything's
Rudy's
Rudy's
fault.
fault. Yeah, I mean, I don't need not for much Scott.
Feel bad. We run. Oh, wow,
Cool. All right, well, I'm going to watch the slides from here, and I'll just catch it if it does it again. It might be the mouse doing something and clicking. Okay, I talked a little about who am I. I am currently an engineer at pinballlife.com. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that website or not, but it's a company that sells pinball parts. We manufacture all sorts of different replacement parts and just a bunch of random stuff. We've got a lot of homebrew parts for people building custom machines, and I basically do all the electrical and mechanical engineering for them, and also like the IT stuff as needed. So that is my actual day job. So 40 hours a week to 40, however many hours a week I need to work, that's what I do. And then I'm also a contractor for Spooky Pinball. So I contract to them by making game designs. I do engineering for Spooky as well. For instance, the scoop that is in TNA is actually something that I engineered for Spooky Pinball. So that was like they were having issues with like AMH, right? Had really, I hate to say it, but not a good quality scoop in it, and it was kind of the metal wasn't quite bent right, and the feeds don't come out all the same, and it was a wreck. And it's fine for what it is, but they needed a better solution. They needed something reliable, so they contacted me, and we made that scoop, and that's the one that's actually in TNA. There's two of them. So yeah, that's what I do for a living. That is me. I wrote on here, what's my favorite mythical creature? I don't know why I wrote that on this slide, because first of all, I mean, like, the only mythical creature I can even think of is a unicorn, so I guess, but are they really mythical? I don't know. I've never seen one, so I don't know. Maybe rainbow unicorns, fine. That's
Are you coming out as a Roni? I love you, Scott.
you know what, Patrick, if that's what you want me to do.
Next title linked.
Oh, I mean, man. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about what the game is that I made, right? I want to talk a little bit about the playfield design software and procedure that I went through when I actually created the game. I'm going to show you guys a little bit about what the code looks like, and that's the part where I apologize. I hope it shows up on the screen, but it's a little bit small, but I'll do my best to talk through what we're actually looking at. We're going to show some never-before-seen art stuff. We'll talk a little about the music. I've got a couple screenshots of the light show generator that I use in Skeleton games, so I can show you guys what that looks like. and then we'll do the Q&A at the end. So, tons of fun. So what's Total Nuclear Annihilation? So this was brought to production by Spooky Pinball, as most of you guys already know. And what it is a single level playfield game, which hasn't been done in a while. It's a little bit risky to do that. But it's a game that uses the latest and greatest technology that we have available in pinball machines. So, and again, that's a little bit opinionated, maybe. I don't know. I think it's the latest and greatest technology. It's got LCD screens. It's got old school numeric displays going on, which I can talk about how that works too. You know, that's just what I think. So, the game, though, I ultimately wanted to make something that was for myself that was fairly easy to understand, so that when you have your buddies over, you can hop right on it, but it's not something that's easy to master and easy to play. Especially, it's not easy to play against someone when you're talking shit to them. So it's, you know, you want it to be, you want it to kind of be, you know, you don't want to win every single time too. You want to kind of balance between people and different skill levels, which is interesting. But anyway, it is meant to encourage multiplayer, and we can go into more of that later as well, some of the code stuff. The team on Total Nuclear Annihilation, this game was not built just by myself. It could not have been done by myself. It had a lot of other people with their hands in this. So first and foremost, Charlie Emery from Spooky Pinball. He obviously convinced me to even consider making this a production game for people to buy and put on location and play. That I can't thank him enough. I originally didn't want to do it, but he convinced me, and I think that was a very good decision. A guy named Jimmy Lipham, he is the guy responsible for the Linux operating system that this game runs on. I am not a Linux OS guru at all. I mean, I can like SSH into something and like, you know, type my credentials in. That's about it. Like, I'm not really that smart when it comes to Linux. So this guy, he's the guy who created Demolition Man on steroids. He is now creating the wizard blocks that you guys have probably seen. That's the same guy. He's a genius when it comes to this stuff. So it seems like a good fit to grab him and have him help me out. So the next guy on here, Michael Ocean, was the guy who invented and created this thing called Skeleton Game, which is a framework that the PROC system, which is what TNA runs on, it's a framework that sits on top of all the low-level stuff that the hardware controls, and it allows me to use almost like English and Python code to communicate with the pinball hardware. So I'll show you when we go into that code too, of what exactly it looks like. You're gonna look at some of this code and be like, holy crap, that's like, it's easy. I mean, you can just read it and you can see what it's doing. Yeah, Rudy, you'll totally understand. It's fine. Next guy here, Jerry Stellenberg. Jerry Stellenberg owns Multimorphic, which is the company that actually makes the PROC and the P3 system. So the system that's running in TNA is the exact same circuit board system that's in that Lexi Lightspeed P3 game. I don't know if you guys have really seen that, but it's the same hardware inside there. It's just Lexi has a whole nother aspect of hardware to it with like a new LCD screen and everything. But basically, it's fundamentally the same. It's pretty interesting. Matt Andrews, the guy who did the artwork for this, very talented dude. Love that guy. He also did animation support for David Van Ness, who was the next guy in here. David Van Ness did all the LCD animations, and he is super good at destroying video and making it look like it came from an old CRT. So, hats off to him. It looks awesome. And then myself, who's on here, who is in charge of all sorts of ridiculous things like the concept design, music, sound effects, you know. I did the programming, the hardware, and most of the engineering on it. Some other little things I guess I did, I don't know. Yeah, cool. But anyway, that's the team though. I mean, it's a lot of people, and there's it couldn't have been done without all these people. So, all right. So let's talk about the playfield a little bit. So what you're seeing here on the screen is an actual 3D render of the Total Nuclear Annihilation playfield as it sits in SolidWorks. So the thing about this one though is this doesn't have the plastics set on it, but this was just the last screen grab that I had that I could pull up easily. But I designed the entire thing in SolidWorks in 3D so that I could simulate the different shots and make sure things lined up properly before I actually went and cut a playfield into wood. Because the way that I made the game is I didn't use foam core like a lot of people do, like foam core and hot glue, and they just like stick things everywhere and then whatever works, then they CAD it up. I started the opposite way, and I started with CAD, and then got everything kind of lined up, and then then I was able to cut it in wood. It's pretty interesting actually, because doing this in 3D allowed me to create all these other custom parts, like the apron, as you can see on the bottom of here. That apron is a fully custom apron that is just for this game only. Like that is a game specific part for this thing. But I'm able to do that in SolidWorks and then send that off for manufacturing. It's pretty cool. SolidWorks also, something really cool it lets me do when I'm doing stuff in 3D is I can take something like a star post, and if I have that in just a little bit of a wrong position, I can grab it in SolidWorks and move it, just manually move it with my mouse, and the hole that goes through the playfield follows it and stays with the playfield. So now when I go and cut the playfield or export the playfield out for CNC, that hole is now in the right spot where I moved that star post to. So it's kind of cool how that all works. So doing this though, when I designed it, you have to convert everything over, because you can't just take a SolidWorks file, which is that 3D thing, and then just like toss it over to Charlie and be like, okay Charlie, go ahead and make the game now. It doesn't work like that. So most things have to be exported into a 2D format called DXF, which is something that like AutoCAD or DraftSight, those are two applications that can read that. So you can see on the right side there, we've got the playfield in DXF format, which shows all the holes and all the routing lines and everything. There's a lot going on in that piece of wood. I mean, there's a ton of stuff cut out of it. In the middle there, that's the apron. That's the flat pattern for the metal apron before it's been bent up. And then there's just like a little plastic on the side there. Just do it. Obviously, none of those three things are to scale to each other. But,
it's a really big plastic, man.
It's a real big plastic. It's about the size of the apron.
I've never seen that in the machine. Is that the limited edition one?
It's the limited edition. We're going to release that next year. Yeah. That's actually my second game. It's just going to be that. Yeah, exactly. Just one flipper and one big plastic. I hope you guys enjoy it. Right? So I get to take chances, right?
Yeah.
All right. So now something cool. What's the code look like? We're going to take a quick dive into a sample set of code that I wrote for this game, so I can show you how basic, like English looking this code actually is, and how like not intimidating it is. Hopefully. It's written in Python. It's using the Skeleton Game framework. It's the Skeleton Game framework. I put the Skeleton Game / P-Rock game on here because those two frameworks work together. And they are, like Skeleton Game is built on top of P-Rock game, which then, is built on top of the hardware. So it's a little confusing, that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. It's just a fairly simple programming language. So let me go in and show you what some of the code looks like. So I know you probably can't read that. It's probably really small on the screen, but
Screenshot.
yeah, you can screenshot it. It's fine. Now, I'm gonna post this up for everybody. I'm gonna post this. I'll post this thing. You can do that. So what we're looking at here, though, which is really interesting, is if you guys have played the game, which I'm sure most of you guys probably have, this is the code that actually processes when the ball enters the left scoop. So these are the decisions that it has to make once that ball gets in there. So the first thing that you'll see here is actually the top. It just says when the left scoop switch is active for 100 milliseconds. So that's something that's really key to this. Is every switch hit, I usually put on a millisecond buffer so that the switch has to be closed for a certain amount of milliseconds before it actually starts processing something, so that if the ball bounces on a switch, it doesn't fire the switch a bunch of times and try to run the same code like 10 times. Patrick, what's up?
Explain that there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second.
There is 1,000 milliseconds.
1/10 of a second.
That is a 1/10 of a second. Yes.
Well, I mean, most people would know what a millisecond is.
It's fair. That's fair. I'm kind of blind to that stuff sometimes. But so anyway, well, going through this step by step, the first thing that happens when that ball enters that scoop is it first checks to see if you have mystery mode available to you. And it also, if mystery mode is available, it then checks to make sure you're not in multi-ball. So if mystery mode cannot be in TNA, cannot be triggered during multi-ball. It actually just, it waits until you're out of multi-ball to actually trigger that mystery mode. So that's the first thing it checks. So it says if those conditions are met, so if there is a multi-ball on the left side, or if there is a mystery and you're not in multi-ball, it then goes to the next line and says, okay, process the mystery mode. So it doesn't kick the ball out at this point. It'll just hold it, let the mystery mode do its thing, and the mystery mode will kick the ball out at that point. If those two criteria aren't met, it then checks a couple other things. It then checks to see if the reactor status is ready, which means that when that lights up, yellow and says shoot the left scoop, it checks to see if that's going, and it also checks to see if it's already in the process of being started. That's a little complicated why that's in there, but if something happens with that ball, if the reactor is starting and the ball is somehow still on the playfield, the ball enters that scoop again, it won't start to try and start the same reactor over again. But then if that is met, it then starts the next reactor, right? Which is, we all know it does that crazy animation thing, it's kind of nuts. So, but if none of that is going, so if that scoop is not lit for mystery, you're not in multi-ball, maybe you are in multi-ball, and your reactor is not ready to be started, it goes on to this next section where it checks to see how fast it should kick the ball out of the scoop. So, in default settings, the game will just kick the ball out immediately, which we'll see here. There are two other settings, though, in the service menu that allow you to control how fast that ball comes out. There's a setting called lame, and there's a setting called medium, and there's a setting called fast. Okay, fast is the default. It first checks to see if it's lame. So if you've got your game set on lame speed, it actually waits for 200 milliseconds and then fires the ball out. So then you got a total of the 100 milliseconds for the switch to be registered, and then 200 milliseconds on top of that for a total of 300 milliseconds. So it's pretty lame. I mean, 300 milliseconds is definitely a big difference than it just coming out immediately. The medium setting here, it says if it's not lame, then check if it's medium. If it's medium, it'll delay it another 100 milliseconds, so for a total of 200 milliseconds. And if it is set on the default, it just fires it out immediately as soon as that 100 milliseconds is hit. So the next thing on here is that this next little piece of code actually just says, hey, shoot or pass the switches, or pass the switch events to the next thing that may need it. So that is that. On the bottom there, which you guys can read hopefully, is what the code actually looks like that kicks the ball out of that scoop. It's interesting because it's basically English. That's the actual code that I call when I want to fire a coil, right? I say self.game.coils, and then I type the coil name that I have specified, and then I just hit pulse with the parentheses, and it just default fires that coil for me. It's pretty cool. I mean, that framework is really neat.
Clean.
It's super clean. Yeah, and it's real easy to read. Like if I'm going back through and trying to figure out why something's not working, it's pretty cool that way. So pretty interesting though. So now, let's talk about some art. This is going to be really cool because there's some stuff in here that I'm going to show some Easter eggs in the artwork. I'm going to show some of the stuff that Matt Andrews gave me that were really preliminary sketches when we were doing the initial artwork. So first thing is the artwork itself, obviously created by Matt Andrews. It has outrun style of art where it's very neon and real 80s looking, but it's like the stereotypical 80s looking. It's not actually what the 80s look like. Because
Sega outrun? Like I'm asking. Like I'm
yeah,
I
no,
was
it's
also confused.
I know it's a confusing thing. There's a genre out there of artwork and music and subculture called outrun, which is like, if you guys are familiar with steampunk, it's like the steampunk for the 80s.
Okay.
So it's steampunk didn't really exist the way that we perceive it back in the Victorian era. That's not really what that looked like,
Sure.
but it's what we kind of perceive that could have
Is it
been on the
simply
extreme level.
culture stuff? Is that
It's
what
like
it is?
it's outrun culture.
Outrun.
Is what it is.
Outrun culture.
Yes. So
Sorry,
that's-
Outrunners.
it's interesting. Yeah. So this is what people. This is what we think the '80s kind of looked like stereotypically. Like everything's super neon. Like
Totally,
just,
it was.
if you
It
type
was
in
totally
outrun,
like that.
if you're totally right.
I was there.
Dude.
I know. I was there too. I was really little, but I was there.
Yeah, it was like that.
In fact, I'm actually wearing high tops right now.
Go.
So, yeah, so that's the kind of art. I mean, go to the internet, just type in outrun artwork or outrun music. There's like this whole subculture of this stuff happening now. It's really kind of cool to see. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this. So this is the final version of the backglass, which is actually in the production game with the score displays along the bottom. Now, here is an early sketch by Matt Andrews that when we were trying to kind of lay it out a little bit and talk about some things. Now, it looks almost, the structure is almost what the actual final backglass looked like. There were some changes to some different characters, there was some hidden things put in it, and you can see this one actually says Total Annihilation, which is very interesting because we had to change the name of the game like halfway through when we were doing the artwork because of Atari renewing the trademark to Total Annihilation, the video game from the 90s. If they didn't renew that trademark, we probably would have been fine with it, but now we got TNA, which is actually we can blame my buddy Yancey for that one. He's the guy who actually came up with the name for it. He's like, yeah, just call it Total Nuclear Annihilation, and then he's like looking at me like, right? Yeah. And I'm like, oh, all right. So there were some other options too. Like Charlie was pushing me, and I'm glad we didn't do this, but he wanted to call it Scott Danesi's Total Annihilation.
like pinhead zombie.
Yeah, I'm like, dude,
hamburgers.
I'm like, dude, no. So we're like, no, forget it. It's called TNA. We're doing that. So that's like, that's just embarrassing. So that we went with Total Nuclear Annihilation, changed a little bit of backglass, and here's a version of the backglass without the score windows on the bottom, but it's basically the same artwork. So let's look at some of the hidden stuff in this backglass, because the backglass has some neat detail in it that if you don't know what you're looking for and you don't know the story behind it, it's not really that funny to you. But I'm going to tell some stories because it's kind of fun. Right here where that's circled in green, that is the control panel for the reactors, and there's a little guy standing in front of this computer, right, with the cool little stuff on there. His computer screen right there is an actual screenshot of me working on my code, and that's a piece of the core control code. So it's really, like, I just basically, Matt's like, hey, do you have any like code you want to throw on this thing? I'm like, well, I don't know, I'm working on the core control code right now. He goes, yeah, send me that. I just like screenshotted my screen and sent it to him, and he just put that right in there. So it's really neat. Like, you can't really zoom in on it any more than that to see what it actually says, but it's.
I've never seen that.
I know, isn't that cool? It's really neat. There's all sorts of, like, we're just getting started. Hold on, there's some crap in this backglass, man. Yeah, there's some neat stuff. Okay, so here's circled. You guys may have noticed this. I'm not sure, but it's on this radiation barrel thing. It says "Parts from Terry" on it. Terry is my boss at Pinball Life. Terry had donated me when I was building the prototype. Donated a bunch of parts and did not charge me the employee discount even on the parts. He gave me parts to actually build the prototype. So I wanted to make sure that he was forever remembered in this backglass as as a special thanks. So now he's like forever stuck in that design. So it's kind of cool. All right, what's next? What is it? Oh, this is gonna be cool. You guys ready for this one? You guys know what this is? Does anyone know what's going on here? Okay, so over here there is a movie poster, and it says it's the movie called Lion Man. And yeah, exactly. In the Lion Man coin. So it's like an old broken down movie poster that had fallen over. for this movie called Lion Man. And what I did was the two people, along with myself, who started that whole Lion Man thread on Pinside. The two guys, the one guy's name is Doug Manley, the other guy's name is Jay Brand, really close friends of mine. So I wanted them to be stuck in this back glass as well with me. Like if I'm going down, I'm taking everyone with me. So I wanted. We made this movie poster, Matt Andrews. There's on the right side. You can see that's the actual graphic that Matt Andrews made, and then he kind of like, screwed it up a little bit and made it look like it fit the rest of the back glass. So kind of a neat little thing. Definitely fun. Okay, the top section here. There's a lot of little stuff in this top section. So let's take a look here. So up in this, these are advertised. These are billboards, by the way. And the first thing on the left there is something called Blvd disc, which, if you guys remember at all from like the 90s, the mini disc thing that didn't work out so well. I wish I still had some of that stuff. I don't know if I have that. Keswick, what do you got?
I used to record every concert I went to on my this.
You did?
Yeah, mini disc.
That's crazy.
Hundreds of those.
You've got hundreds of those.
God,
That's crazy. Unfortunately.
It's like 10 people who want copies.
They love it though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, the next thing on here, the main big one is Crystal Cola. So the story behind this was, in my original Whitewood, I was joking around and I was putting advertisements in the attract mode of failed 80s and 90s products, and I put Crystal Pepsi in there as like one of the things that like I wanted to make it seem like in this universe, Crystal Pepsi like really took off and was like a real like major thing, So we wanted to put something like that, a little homage back to that. So Matt made something called Crystal Cola, which is not still red and blue. I don't know. We're not going to get in trouble for that. I don't think. I think it's fine. But this guy over here, he calls it the S19. I think it's. I think what he was trying to do is, I have this white Fiero. And I think he was trying to somehow incorporate that into the back glass, and he's just like, yeah, it's the S19. I don't know what he's doing with that, but I'm pretty sure that's what that is. He doesn't, we didn't really talk about it too much, and he hasn't really admitted to me that that's actually the Fiero, but I think it is. It kind of looks like it. The Pontiac Fiero was made from 1984 to 1988. And it's a mid-engine car made by Pontiac, which is real weird if you know anything about cars. Yeah, the engine's in the wrong spot. So
the best thing about that car was the 6x9s were in the front, and you had the little head speakers behind you.
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, it had speakers in the front. It's rear-wheel drive with the engine behind you. So if you break that thing loose, I mean, we're not even talking about cars. It oversteers. It's fine. It oversteers.
That's a fun car to have.
It is. It's a neat car. Down here, Matt Andrews hid his logo, and I didn't find it until I think I found that maybe a few months ago. Like, not even. I was just digging around looking at stuff, and then there's something even more hidden in here. Does anyone recognize that? Can you see that at all? That is the old school spooky pinball podcast logo. So that's pretty funny. We didn't know that was in there either. Matt was not telling us everything he was hiding in there. So there might be more stuff that I don't know about still. I don't know. But I think Matt just likes kind of playing games, and it's fun. It's great stuff, though. Let's see, what else do we got? Oh, the thing over there. So that is, you ready for this? That's a futuristic helicopter that we were trying to figure out what it should look like, and Matt drew this little sketch, and he's like, yeah, I was thinking something like this, and it's kind of neat how he has these sketches, and then he turns it into something like that on the left, he's very talented, man. I don't know, I can't do that stuff, so I'm kind of blown away by it. But that's the little helicopter guy. There's another guy over here, too. This Matt Andrews calls the chicken mech. Yeah. Wasn't there something called like Mech Warrior or something back in the day? Something like that? Yeah, it's something like is that kind of what that was? It kind of looked like something. Yeah, it's very familiar looking, but anyway, he calls it the chicken mech. It kind of does look like a chicken though, with the arms and stuff. But it's kind of neat. It looks futuristic, like it's the 80s futuristic, I guess. All right, what else we got? Oh, we got the security guard guy. this guy. So that's not really anybody. It's just a security officer that is on a video monitoring security system up there. That security system is just right above the doors for the reactor entrance. So
I thought that was the final boss.
no, not really. I mean, he could be. He totally could be.
It looks like him.
It does.
Who was the pretty girl on the playfield, like the main girl?
Oh, the main girl in the
Yes, who is
background.
that?
Yes,
Who is that?
that is the young lady sitting in the back corner over there. Here's my wife. Look how embarrassing her. Look, she's turning around. So what we did was we gave Matt Andrews some pictures, and I was like, well, we should make the girl kind of resemble my wife. Not like be my wife on there, but like just kind of resemble her, because I think she's a good lady back there. So that's what we did. It was just kind of fun. She has actually been a really good sport through this whole thing. I have been working very hard and long hours to get this game done and out. She was a big supporter of the whole thing. So, she deserves it. Just like everybody else. I can't believe they didn't put that in the presentation. I feel awful.
I saved 1.1.
So Patrick just saved my marriage, Patrick. You're going to be getting a present in the mail pretty soon. All right, guys, let's talk about the playfield art. So the playfield artwork, and I know this is really small, I'm going to zoom in on some of this stuff. The playfield art was originally sketched out with that sketch on the right. I'm just going to go through, and there's no real hidden stuff in the playfield. So Matt Andrews hid everything, all the Easter egg things in the art. He hid it all in the back glass. So this stuff is just kind of cool to look at. When he was originally sketching it out, it's very similar to the actual production playfield art. He's got just all the little guys and stuff on the right. There's like other things like lasers and stuff on the left, which is kind of cool. But really, I mean, it's not really that different. But what we do is we would go through iterations of this where he would send me that white sketch drawing, and then I would send it back to him with red text written on it, saying like, oh, we need to add some text here that says X, Y, and Z. On this one, you can see there's some text here. It says like complete grid for like next reactor and that stuff. And those signs, we'll talk about those in a minute, because all of those red marks on this example actually ended up on the plastics themselves. So it's kind of neat. Here's the middle of the playfield. So we had the map kind of drawn based on the drawing that my buddy Jay did with Sharpie on my whitewood. I don't know if you guys have seen the whitewood at all, but there's actual Sharpie just drawn on it in the shape of an island. And it's, we kind of mimicked that a little bit. Let's see, what else is on there? Oh, yeah, we got the, destroy all reactors for total annihilation. That actually made it to the production over on the side there. Just other little notes. You can see the explosion for the pop bumper. It's not quite as defined in the production version as it looks in this sketch, because the sketch is obviously black and white, and the final artwork is more of like a painted vector thing. So, all right, and then the bottom.